With my co-host David Walls from the Family Foundation. Thanks, David.
Greg, good to be with you. March 1st.
It is. It is. I mean, your parents told
How's
you
it?
this all along, right? And now we've got kids, and
Yeah.
my kids are married, and yours are growing up. It gets faster, doesn't it?
It does.
It flies, and now we've got the General Assembly and all that to deal with. Also, by the way, but in the midst of that, yesterday we were given an extra 24 hours, right? Leap day in the leap year. So the question that we ask is, what did you do with what God gave you? Extra 24 hours, and we've got a few suggestions. Would you say, David?
Yes.
How to wisely use their time,
Yeah.
as the word says, count your time and make sure good use of it. So with that said, wrapping up the ninth week of the General Assembly, coming down the stretch run, there's a lot going on, right? What are the big things on your plate and the Family Foundation's plate, David?
Well, it's crunch time.
Yeah.
There's you and I have been breaking down and talking about a lot of different bills, different issues. Ultimately we're seeking to just, encourage public policy that honors the Lord, to encourage Christians to engage as salt and light, and so thankful for those that continue to engage. But there's really some important issues, and this week was a busy week. Thankful we had those extra 24 hours.
Yeah.
Would have ran out of time otherwise.
Right. That's how it works.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Right.
But Greg, we had two really encouraging hearings on key bills that you and I have talked a little bit about that I want to share some about. So one of them was a bill that is Senate Bill 147, which is a bill by Senator Lindsey Tishner. Similar to a bill that she worked on last session that would protect children and really all Kentucky communities from
Yes.
adult-oriented businesses and sexualized performances.
So schools and otherwise. It's
Yes.
not just in schools, it includes that, but it's
Right.
otherwise, right?
Yes. And so that bill was heard actually on Thursday. And I was actually able to testify, thankful for the opportunity to testify in support of that bill. But what it would do is set essentially a baseline of protections across the state, Greg, important statewide framework of regulations that would say that adult-oriented businesses can't be essentially within a city block distance of places where children would gather, whether that be churches, education-related establishments, parks, other things.
Residential? I think it is that
I
too,
believe
right?
there's some residential
areas where you would have.
in there. Certainly, as it relates to the context of schools, and there's some
Right.
language in there about if there's children meeting in schools that meet at home. Really strong bill, important issue. And then a lot of the conversation you may have heard, the way the media talks about it, is calling it the drag bill, and it does address that. And what it does is, look, we have continued to be very, very concerned about the targeted, and it's very clear,
Exploitation.
hypersexualized drag performances that are sometimes being done on public property that are being marketed towards children. I mean, that's just a fact. It's going on, and in fact, it's those that are promoting that are proud of those facts. In fact, one of the organizations here in Kentucky, their mission statement makes it clear their target audience is children.
Yes.
And so, what this bill would do in that regard, Greg, is say that those types of, if they're essentially sexually explicit, they cannot happen on public property.
Okay.
And so I think, does it get any more common sense?
No.
Than that?
So it doesn't say you can't do it,
Right.
but it says you can't do it in a place where kids are going to be there and
Right.
vulnerable.
Right.
In essence. Now
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
broad
Right.
description of it.
Yeah.
But the sexually explicit content and all that is defined in the bill, as you and I
Very-
talked about, so
yeah.
that we can make it very clear. It got a hearing. It passed out of
It did.
committee, right?
Yeah, it did. So now it's eligible to be voted on by the full Senate. Like I said, there was a little bit more limited version of this bill that Senator Tishner worked on last session that did pass the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hopeful have every reason to believe that there's the votes there to pass in the Senate. But we're going to have to get it moving in the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
House, and I don't want to get ahead of us. But that's one of those issues that we can get across the finish line. Put a baseline of protections across the state. Many other states have done this. And in fact, as I said in my testimony, I honestly think if you ask a lot of Kentuckians, they would probably think there were some regulations related to this
Why
already.
isn't that already here, right?
And there's
Or-
not
yeah.
statewide. And again, what's also important with this bill is it wouldn't prevent a local government, county, from having even stronger, requirements and restrictions and protections.
Sure.
But Greg, as you and I know, look, government has a moral obligation, duty to protect Kentuckians from the adverse effects that are well established when it relates to sexually explicit businesses and performances.
Of any kind.
Yeah,
Of
we're
any
talking
kind,
about.
right.
I mean, it's associated with sexual exploitation, human trafficking, public indecency, obscenity,
Strip clubs,
harm
those
to
kind of things.
children.
Right.
So really thankful that bill is moving forward in the Senate.
Yeah. What now? Typically, just a little bit that David could probably tell you more, but I know this. Typically, if they move it out of committee, they know they've got enough votes. The question is, and this is where we would ask for a call to action, listeners, call and encourage them to get that on the Senate floor
Quickly.
Yeah. And get a hearing and get a vote on that, and then moves to the House as you alluded to.
Yeah.
And we can move from there. So that's the things we're looking at in this last month of the Assembly, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of these, let's encourage those who represent us.
Yeah.
That they would stand for what we believe in and what we voted to put them in office for. Will you please get this out there? Don't be fearful of how the media or others might handle that.
Yeah.
This is good, common sense bills and legislation, and it needs to be out there to help our kids right now. And that one particularly.
Yeah.
I know there's another one, and you're a good friend of mine that I do a Wednesdays for Women with, Adia Wushner. The Baby Olivia bill. Talk to our listeners about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was heard this week on Thursday as well. Michael Johnson, our policy director, testified on that bill. Did just a phenomenal job. Representative Nancy Tate, who's carrying it, as well as Representative Emily Callaway, both spoke and kind of laid out the bill. They did a wonderful job. But I'll tell you, and I told Representative Tate this after the hearing, as good as they were in laying out the bill, the most powerful part of the hearing was they played the video.
Oh, that's it. I hope that, we were talking about that. If people would just see it. Now, the other side's scared to death of that video.
Yeah.
Because it truly shows the development of life in the womb.
Yeah.
And that's literally why it's called Baby Olivia, right?
Right. Yeah. To remind folks,
And
it's just a simple 3-minute video, scientifically accurate, that just shows the development of a preborn child in the womb. And this bill would not mandate that specific video, but it would that video would kind of set the parameters, and say that in our schools, in 6th grade and up, schools could have those videos and help teach about human development.
Clarify something for me.
Yeah.
You said they could have. Is it saying they should have? If
So
they're doing human development, life
it
development?
would require them to do that. But one of the interesting things, Greg, is this fits into some of the human sexuality,
right?
Which
we used to do.
Right, but it also provides the parental oversight, the same parental oversight protections that we worked on SB 150 last session.
Right.
It fits into that.
Excellent.
So parents would have to be notified. They'd be able to review, and if a parent
opt in or
like
opt out,
like other things in human sexuality, if they didn't want their child, so. I mean, this bill respects parental rights, and that was brought up in the hearing too. And it was interesting to see because the pro-abortion folks were furious that this bill's moving. They don't want our kids to be taught about the truths about what happens in the womb.
That there's actually life.
Right.
Yes.
And they want to promote radical sex education, as we note, and they used it to talk a lot about what they would like to be taught. Yeah. But what's interesting was when it brought up that it fell within the parental rights protections in the law, they were like, oh, well, that's a good thing. But I wasn't quite so sure that they supported those same parental rights protections last session when we were talking about ensuring that kids aren't exposed to inappropriate LGBT content.
Maybe a little double-mindedness.
So there was some interesting kind of reading behind the lines, so to speak, or reading between the lines, I should say. Some interesting. But very encouraged that bill's got out of the Senate, I believe Health Services Committee that Representative Moser chairs, and the committee that we were referencing before, that was in the VMAP committee in the Senate on Senator Tishner's bill, and thankful for the chairman, Senator Girdler, on that. So on the House, we need the House to move quickly on that bill, because that would still have to then go over to the Senate.
And they can find that out, KentuckyFamily.org.
Right,
KentuckyFamily.org. We've
got
all these
more
outlined
information and action alerts where folks can take.
Right.
But Greg, and don't want to steal your thunder, but it was the bill filing deadline this week, so there was a number of other important pro-life related measures,
Right.
and some not pro-life that were filed as well.
Well, and I know one of them that you have talked about, and again, our friend Adia has talked about, you both have talked about this, getting these ones out that really help strengthen and work against those who will try and put exceptions in.
Right.
Talk about HB 700, because it just came out this week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Representative Jason Nemus and I believe Nancy Tate together filed that bill. That's one of the Love Them Both bills
Right.
that would simply seek that, along with House Bill 467, to provide compassionate and comprehensive support for non-viable pregnancies, fetal abnormalities, and those that are impacted by sexual violence.
Right.
It would do so in ways that completely uphold the dignity of the baby and the mother.
Exactly
We can do
right.
both. That's
Yeah.
why these bills are called Love Them Both, as opposed to what unfortunately the pro-abortion side is saying is we should, re-legalize abortion so that abortions can be committed
Yeah.
in some of these circumstances.
David, my sister, Beth Williams, and many in this area know her because of some of the things she's involved in this. She was born hydrocephalic, and had we had the look into the womb, which is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
like the life development and
Yeah.
all that, but had we had that in 1965, the way they have it now, and the opportunity legally
Yeah.
to kill the baby,
Yeah.
there would have been doctors, as they often do, and I wouldn't have her. And
Yeah.
she's been one of the greatest blessings in our lives. And so that's very
Yeah.
near and dear
Yeah.
to our heart, and many others. We
Right.
work with Special Olympics and others.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and we've got to honor and revere all life. We have to.
Absolutely.
And so those two, by the way, that's HB 700 and HB 467. These remove the exceptions so that life can be carried to the full term, brought to birth, and then we can deal with those other things. But there's one on the other side of that too that we want people to oppose, right? I think it's 711, right?
Yeah, there was we've talked about some of the bills that have been filed to add exceptions or re-legalize abortion. Unfortunately, there was a bill filed by several Republicans on the bill filing deadline that would seek to do that. That's House Bill 711, and obviously, just like the Democrat-filed bills that have been filed by Democrats, were strongly opposed to any effort to re-legalize abortion. And that was, I believe, Representative Ken Fleming, and then there was some co-authors that were initially signed on to that, including
One of those right here in our listening audience.
Representative Timoney,
Yep.
Killian Timoney
Yep.
here. And look, I know these are hard issues,
They're not easy.
when you're talking about, but
But the truth is clear.
the truth is
Doesn't-
clear,
doesn't
and
muddy the truth, really.
we've
No.
got to be consistent. And so, in the same way that we were strongly opposed by the other bills, we encourage everyone to encourage our legislators to stand firm and consistent for life.
Yes. And so oppose House Bill HB 711.
Yes.
Call when you do that, and oppose that one so that we don't have these exceptions. Now, there's a few other calls to action. I know you talked about HB 442, Representative James Tipton, the churches and taxation,
Yeah,
right?
several bills that we've got to get moving, and we need
Yes.
more calls and engagement. House Bill 442 that would protect churches as relates to taxation.
Yep.
House Bill 47, the update to our Religious Freedom Restoration Act, ready to be voted on in the House floor. We need that. And then House Bill 304 by Representative Shane Baker to protect parental rights. Now is the time to be contacting your
Don't
legislators.
wait. We got a month. Let's make sure this happens. You can call the Kentucky Legislative Message Line as well, 800-372-7181. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in the love and lordship of Christ. Stay tuned at 1245 for Hope is Here. I'm Greg Williams with co-host David Walls, and you're listening